It's common for people who have been hurt to build walls between themselves and others. These walls are designed to keep hurt out, but the downside to them is that they also keep positive feeling things like love and happiness out. Many experts talk about this kind of wall, but the wall I'm going to talk to you about today is a different kind of wall, one that's erected by people who are hurt even worse. This wall is designed to keep positive feeling things like love out, but to keep pain in. There are two kinds of people who erect walls to keep love out. The first have been hurt by their connection to other people. For this kind of person, things like enmeshment and unhealthy codependency and guilt traps made love painful. They don't want to let love in because letting people too close means getting used or hurt by them. They have suffered from incoming boundary violations. The second kind of person who erects walls to keep love out has been hurt by the withdrawal of love by other people and the loss of happiness. Their lives have been tormented by loss. They experience the loss of love and support and happiness. They see happiness and love and support as transient and unpredictable. It is taken away just as easily as it is given, and the trauma of losing it makes it smart to not become attached to it at all. People who are in this category cannot receive love and cannot trust happiness. In fact, to them, happiness and love do not feel real. What I want to focus on for this episode is the other feature of this wall. Not the feature that keeps love out, but the feature that keeps pain in. I know what you're thinking. Who on earth would build a wall to keep pain in? The answer is a great many people for a great many reasons. Multiple studies, including a very famous study from the University of Oslo in Norway, proved that pain is experienced as pleasant if something that is expected to feel worse or more painful has been avoided. The subjects in the pain studies that were prepared for the worst felt relieved when they realized the pain was not going to be as bad as they had feared. In other words, a sense of relief can be powerful enough to turn an obviously negative experience like pain into a sensation that is comforting or even enjoyable. You can apply this idea to each of the following reasons why we might hold on to pain. I'm going to list some of these examples for you now. Number 1, the most common reason why we would let pain in and keep it close to us begins with a dynamic in childhood. With all people, we learn quite quickly, because of the way that we're raised, that children who are bad are punished and children who are good are rewarded. Now, when we're younger, love is the same as survival. We feel as if abandonment means death. So we have to keep love more than we even need food or water. So what we're risking by being bad is death. If we had parents that were hands-off and ignored us when we were happy, or even worse, if we had parents who were threatened by us feeling good, parents who would become irritated with our energy level when we were happy, or who would stop our play to make us do chores, or who seemed perturbed by the fun that we got to have, or even worse, who actively punished us when we felt good, we got the message that feeling good means being bad. And by the same token, if this family that we came into shows a great deal of attention and support when we're feeling pain or when something's going wrong, we learn that there must be goodness or virtue in pain. Being bad means being unloved and thus ultimately dying, and so we began to see feeling bad as good and feeling good as bad. Now, before we pin this dynamic on parents entirely, let's take a closer look at the real culprit behind this particular belief. It's religion. Take a look at the religions around the world. Take a look at just how many of them propagate the idea that there is some kind of virtue in suffering, or that the person who suffers the most is somehow good. I want to give you an example of how this particular dynamic plays out. Some years ago, I had a client whose mother was devoutly Catholic. So already, before her child was born, she had some kind of idea that there was virtue in suffering, just like Jesus Christ did on the cross. When my client was young and she would play and laugh, her mother would be consumed by the fury of not being considered. She would become aggravated and send her to her room, or remind her of something that would make her sad. However, when she skinned her knee or got sick or was bullied, her mother would hold her on her lap and give her a treat. Remember that our brains link being loved to survival, Needless to say, the only way for this child to remain loved and therefore alive was to be unhappy and hurt. She began to gravitate towards situations that made her unhappy and towards people who hurt her, and even began injuring herself in the subconscious attempt to be good and therefore loved. All the way into adulthood, she believed that only hurt people deserved to be happy and be loved and supported. Her good is bad and bad is good wires were so crossed that she came to me fresh from 7 years spent in an institution for self-harm and multiple suicide attempts. This pattern is especially common if we grew up in homes with a narcissistic parent. Remembering, of course, that a narcissistic parent will never recognize themselves as such and will almost always identify with the exact opposite, being a completely selfless giver and making you feel guilty for it. 2. Another reason why we might build a wall that lets pain in and keeps pain in is because we feel like we have to remember an aspect of ourselves that we lost. When someone we love dies, we feel like we're betraying them if we move on or we get happy. The same idea applies to ourselves. When we feel like some aspect of ourselves was so traumatized that it was lost, we feel as if it is somehow self-betrayal to move forward, to move on, and to be happy. 3. Another reason is that we might feel like pain is the only thing that we can count on. We all want a sense of stability and a sense of security. We gain that security, for the most part, through a sense of certainty. The basic human need of certainty, simply put, is the certainty that we can gain pleasure and avoid pain. But if we get hurt so often and disappointed so often that we feel as if it is impossible to be certain that we can gain pleasure, we turn the tables. We hold on to the only certainty that we have in our lives, which is pain. In our lives, pain is certain, so it feels more real than happiness or love. The very knowledge that we can count on it or even choose to consciously perpetuate it makes us feel a sense of relief. How sad is that? The only certainty we have of feeling good is the feeling of the predictable certainty of pain. We see this so often in people who have been disappointed again and again in their lives. We keep ourselves low to avoid the climb and the inevitable fall. Pain is safe because you may be hurting always, but you aren't losing anything. You aren't crushed by the loss of happiness or love. 4. Another reason why we might build a wall, which is designed to let pain in and keep pain in, is because we have learned to distrust good-feeling things so much that conversely, we have learned to only trust negative-feeling things. So often in our lives, we're surrounded by people who like to sugarcoat insults. The compliment opens a person up so that the insult gets in deeper. If we had people in our lives who maintained this habit, good was used against us. We started to distrust good. We learned that the good is not really genuine. I spoke about this pattern of good being used against us in my YouTube video titled How to Receive. If the people in our lives use love as leverage, love and happiness come with a side dish of guilt, duty, and debt. For this reason, we feel the only thing we can trust is pain. 5. We use pain in order to feel safe. We use it like a kind of buffer. Not only does it prevent us from feeling loss and prevent us from feeling shock, it also acts like a cushion. Just look at the society we live in. One of the most common sayings we have is, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." And some of us take this deeply to heart. We try to experience so much pain, or to pad ourselves with it, or accept so much of it, that we become strong enough that we're impermeable to future pain. We're trying to develop an immunity to pain. Pain can also increase our self-worth. Heroes have to endure extreme pain, so we can keep pain in and propagate it so that we are seen as heroes by others. 6. Another reason that we might let pain in and keep pain is that we're trying to cry mercy to the universe when it's hurt us again and again. We can use our pain like a white flag that prevents other people from hurting us. The idea is that if I'm already hurt, you're less tempted to hurt me. 7. Another reason why we might let pain in and keep pain in is if we're trying to avoid blame or negative responsibility. If you are exhausted or alone and don't want to take responsibility for yourself because of what taking responsibility for yourself might mean to you, pain can be used as a scapegoat for responsibilities. We might think that we have to be in pain for others to help us, or be kind to us, or give us things, or let us off the hook, or take responsibility for us. Pain can be a powerful excuse. We feel terrible about ourselves when things are our fault, especially if we were punished for things that were our fault when we were young. When we don't take responsibility for things that caused us or other people pain, we get to feel good about ourselves still. We can use pain as a good way to maintain our self-esteem by excusing ourselves from the responsibility of things we did to ourselves or others in our past. 8. Another reason why we might let pain in and keep pain is because we feel the sensation of relief, or our good feeling emotions, as a result of the removal of pain. The relief that occurs when something that causes acute, intense pain is removed is enough for those of us who are struggling with extreme levels of emotional or physical pain to deliberately let pain into our lives or cause ourselves pain so that we can feel the relief of that very same pain. Self-injurers are particularly at risk for this attachment to pain. I'll give you an example. Say that I was to give you a phone call and tell you that your house is being repossessed. Then 15 minutes later, I was going to call you again and tell you it's a mix-up. The papers just got placed in different places in our office, and it was all a big mistake. You would feel the sensation of relief, not because I've actually given you good news, but because I removed the bad news. Sometimes if we experience pain in our lives or let it in, the rest of our life seems to feel good by comparison. We actually feel the relief of experiencing what was previously experienced as painful, because now it feels good by comparison. 9. Another reason why we might let pain in and keep pain in is if we were the identified patient in our families. The identified patient, or the IP, is someone within a family, usually a child, who is unconsciously selected by the family to play out the family's internal secret conflicts. This serves as a diversion from the rest of the family members' own pain. The IP is the split-off carrier for the family's disturbances. Simply put, the identified patient is the scapegoat of the family. They are the family problem. The IP is seen as the cause of the painful feelings of the other family members. The IP child is usually the one whose own personality structure is the most invalidating to the personality structure of the parents in the household. Basically, the parents are faced with a decision. Either they have to face the negative emotion within themselves and the aspects of themselves that feel invalidated, or they have to turn against the child and pin the problem on the child, saying that the child is the reason that they feel so bad. By making the child the problem, they get to see themselves as the victims and as the philanthropic helpers, and thus avoid facing and dealing with their own problems. If you suspect that you may have been the IP in your family, I suggest doing some serious research about the identified patient dynamic. If we were the identified patient, we've got some very difficult things going on relative to pain. The first is that our earliest identity is the identity of something being wrong with us and the identity of being in pain. The second is that our family relies upon us being the problem. That's the only way that they get to avoid their own internal conflicts. Our family depends on us staying in the role of the identified patient because the family structure will unravel if we don't. If they have to face their own shadows and pain and stop projecting it onto us, they will be miserable and in pain. After all, we are the ultimate scapegoats. Our family wants to keep us that way. They quite literally will do anything, including hurt you and abandon you, to keep you in this role so they can avoid their own pain. So isn't that funny? To keep their love and support and keep the family together, we have to keep hurting and keep having problems. We're hurting so that we can be loved. If you suspect that you might have built, subconsciously, this wall in your life, which is impenetrable to love and support and happiness, while on the other hand lets in pain and insult and injury, I want you to ask yourself these questions. Number 1, Why do I need to be in pain? Number 2, what would be so bad about being loved? Number 3, what would be so bad about being happy or feeling good? If we have built this kind of wall in our life that lets pain in and keeps pain in, the first thing we need to do is to recognize that this was an extremely intelligent way for us to cope with the pain and trauma that we experienced earlier on in our life. This is not a mess up on our part. It's something we did for survival. Just the awareness that we have this kind of wall between ourselves and others puts cracks in the wall so it can't stand as strong as it once did. The second thing we need to do is to learn how to let good feeling things like happiness and love into our life. But for those of you that have a difficult time letting positive emotion in, I want you to watch my YouTube video titled How to Receive. Another video I want you to watch is called How to Raise Your Frequency and Increase Your Vibration. If you let in positive feeling things little by little, the positive emotion will begin to dilute the negative emotion within you so it doesn't hurt so bad. The third thing we need to do is to make a choice. We need to make a choice about whether we are ready to really face our painful emotions, to sink into them, and to integrate them into our greater being to become whole, or whether we are not ready to do that and instead wish to disidentify from our negative emotions. If the decision is to integrate those negative emotions, I want you to watch my YouTube video titled Healing the Emotional Body, where I explain exactly how to integrate these negative emotions. The next thing we need to do is to fall out of love with pain by seeing all of the damage that it's actually doing to our lives, and then resensitize ourselves so that we can feel those positive emotions when they arise and then follow our joy. We need to develop strategies to help ourselves feel safe. The pain has now become safety to you. Find other methods for making yourself feel safe. Make a list of things that help you to feel safe and pin it up in your house, and when you feel unsafe, go to that list and pick something off of it to do. If we can, we need to take advantage of somatic therapy techniques. When we are desensitized to pain because we let it in and keep it in, we are disconnected from our bodies. We're disconnected from the truth of ourselves. We spend our time in a disembodied state. The fifth thing we need to do is to dedicate our life to the practice of softness. Every decision that you make needs to be made according to the question, is it softer or harder? For example, quitting my job, softer or harder? The immediate answer is the correct one. We can do this on the level of thought, on the level of speech, on the level of action. Is this thought I'm thinking softer or harder? Is this thing I'm saying softer or harder? Is this thing I'm doing softer or harder? We need to consciously choose the softer path. We need to recognize how we're keeping pain close to us by maintaining hardness towards ourselves and towards the world. And we need to make different choices so that we can become softer instead. The sixth thing that we need to do is to look back over this itemized list of reasons why we might build a wall which lets pain in and keeps pain in. And in each scenario, we need to look for the unmet need. If we can find different ways to meet those needs, we can let go of the pain strategy that we are currently using. Also, take your answers that you gave for the 3 questions which I asked previously in this episode, and do the same process. Discover out of your answers what need is actually being met by holding on to pain and by keeping pain. And find different ways to meet those needs so that you no longer need that pain strategy anymore. If you are a person who can't seem to stop suffering, you probably feel like something is wrong with you. You have also probably heard people say that you must like being depressed, or that you're mentally ill, or that you have bad karma. I promise you that none of this is the case. All that has happened is that your life experience has caused you to hold on to pain in order to prevent even worse pain. In your life, you are driving forwards. You cannot help but do so. But if you are using pain to prevent future pain, you are driving with the parking brake on. It is cruelty to expect yourself to simply let go of the parking brake. After all, it is what has been keeping you safe for so long. But the energy it takes to keep that parking brake on, regardless of how safe it has made you in the past, is preventing you from living a new life. I promise you that if you will learn how to release that parking brake, release that attachment to pain more and more each day, you will soon be living a life which feels so much better than this. Have a good week.